On today's episode of Capstone Talent Talks, we are joined by Jack Winfield, a UK-trained quantity surveyor who's made the move from the UK to the US to work on a major data centre project in Columbus in Ohio. We'll be getting into what that transition really looks like, the differences between the UK and the US markets, and how taking that leap can accelerate your career. If you've ever considered relocating or want a real view of life in the US data centre sector, this one's for you. Jack, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Capstone Talent Talks.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, not at all. I want to start by asking you to talk us through your journey. Tell us a bit more about you, what you were doing before, and how you've ended up working on a data center project in Columbus.
Sure. So I graduated from university in Sheffield Hallam. I took a placement year at Siemens Mobility Limited, where I worked in rail infrastructure, so updating the signals on the side of the railway. I then went back to university full-time to finish my degree. After I came out of university, I rejoined Siemens in a different office, but I really enjoyed my experience working in sort of the UK infrastructure and actually the knowledge that getting the graduate scheme gave me rather than going, say, straight to an assistant QS role. At that point, I was able to work under some really fantastic QSs that trained me in process, things to look out for, and gave me a really, really grounded and well-rounded experience. I stayed there for a full 2 years. And then after the 2 years, that's when I made the move to America. So it was pretty much not long out of university that I decided I was going to make this move. And since I've come over here, as you've said, I'm working with a huge client on massive data centers out in Columbus. And it's just really been a baptism by fire, just getting stuck in at the deep end from day one, really.
Fantastic. And what were your first impressions when you arrived over in the States?
I have always been a massive fan of American culture, from whether that be watching American football, playing it from the ages of 16, watching it from 14. It's always been a dream of mine to come over here. And I kind of thought, as I approached that 30 age, that, you know, that dream was out of the pipeline. So for me, it wasn't a shock. It was a I'm finally here type deal for me. The city that I've ended up in, or should I even say the state, actually, Ohio, is not anywhere where I would have thought of actually moving to myself. But I remember the first week being here, and it sounds very deep, but I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I was like, I feel so happy here. It's such an amazing city. I heard someone describe it perfectly the other day. It's like a city suburb. You know, it's busy enough that you've got the hustle and bustle of the city, but it's also a suburb. You've got sort of that suburb feel as well. So yeah, incredibly happy.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear it. It sounds like it's got it all there, which is really nice. Did you have any hesitations before relocating, would you say?
I didn't. I think you can probably remember our conversations with me going, is it ready yet? Am I ready to go yet? Is it yet? No, in all seriousness. Of course, there's always, you know, that you know, is it time to leap? Am I ready to leap? Because it is such a long way. It's not like, you know, you're going 2 hours down the road. That being said, certainly the position that I came into and the role that I was in, the support network that I had waiting for me when I was here was brilliant. I've got an amazing senior commercial manager that I work with that set me up straight away, pretty much with, like, he was like, get your bank sorted, get your car sorted, rather than these things dragging on. So no, I think once you get over that initial hesitation of, am I ready for this, and decide, yeah, this will probably be the best decision you ever make. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. And so obviously it does sound really, really exciting, the whole relocation piece, but it must also be a little bit daunting. So I know we've kind of touched on it already, but what has that experience sort of been like from that initial decision to sort of landing in the US?
I feel very fortunate in the sense that I've spoken to a lot of people that would agree with that statement, that it was very daunting and that it was, you know, there's a lot to sort out. I can't express enough how much I really landed on my feet from day one. Funny side story, but I remember getting a Uber on the very first day to the car rental place, and I was talking to the lady. I told her I'd landed the day before. The Uber driver, without my asking, waited outside and said, "Oh, I didn't want to leave in case they wouldn't give you a license without a USA license." And I was like, she's trying to scam me. She's trying to get money from me. But that is genuinely just every experience that I've met over here. I was very fortunate enough that I went to a football game in my first week. I just bought a ticket. I ended up meeting a group of friends that to this day I still go out and eat chicken wings with once a week. We still get together on the weekends. The team that I work with here, even the Americans, not just the English guys, we go out and socialize together. So yes, whilst of course you're relocating, I've almost been just so distracted by the social side and the friends, and it just sort of blurred into one really. And I was like, okay, I'm settled now.
Amazing. Did that surprise you a little bit how easy, I know by the way that this is obviously different for everyone, but did that surprise you a little bit how kind of easy it was, I guess?
I think it did. I think, in all honesty, one of I suppose this just goes back to your previous question. One of the things that I was hesitant about when moving was, what's my social circle going to be like? I wasn't so much worried about work. You know, I knew I could do the job. I've been doing it in the UK. I was thinking it's all right, you know, making this amazing move, but am I going to be, you know, alone 24/7 in my apartment sort of thing? So I was shocked to how quickly it is. I was shocked at how easy it was to make friends over here. I think it's just putting yourself in social situations, not shying away from those after work drinks on a Friday or when it's pencils down or anything like that. And as a whole, everybody thus far in this country has been incredibly supportive, and I'm having a great time.
Oh, good. I'm so pleased to hear that. And can you give us a little bit into the insight of the, I guess, how long your process took? So from, I suppose, you and I having our first chat to you actually starting your role.
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember you calling me in January of 2024. January 2025. I remember taking this call from this recruiter who was trying to lure me away. And for whatever reason, it just wasn't the right time for me. And I remember to this day, you said, you know, stay in touch because plans might change. And I remember speaking with, you know, friends and family and saying, I think I'm going to do this. And I called you within 7 days. I think you'd set up the first interview process for me. I remember that I do believe that verbally we had an agreement with my employer sort of, let's say, 7 days later. Then I think there was possibly, say, 4 to 5 weeks where we had to wait for that embassy appointment. But in that time, we're going through things with the lawyers who were making things very straightforward for me. We were getting all the paperwork ready. You know, I was looking at what new trainers I was going to buy when I got to America.
Very important decision.
From getting, and this isn't even the interview, this is the first phone call with you in that June, which was mid-June. I think I moved over in October, so I would say sort of call it 8 weeks start to finish. And I even recall us trying to push that timeline up a little bit. So, you know, it can go either way. I have spoken to some guys out here that it's taken before. My thing for me was, I just want to get to the USA. You know, I wasn't specific. I must be in New York. I must be in San Francisco. My thing was, I want to get over there. Now, I think what I would say to the candidates potentially is it's okay to wait if you have a preference on a location that you want to be, but you might have to extend that time period a little bit longer than that 6 weeks. I think that is for somebody that is just, get me over there now, let's go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're so right. It's just about I think a lot of things have to line up as well for certain things to be feasible, right? And, you know, we were lucky that, you know, you were flexible enough that there were things available, and it all worked out, and it was brilliant. And I'm so pleased for you. Advice for anyone who's unsure about relocating, what would you say?
Just do it. No, look, I understand everybody's positions are different. I know people have property, people are in relationships, people have children. I get that. I can't speak to the mentality of those people. I don't understand the decisions that they have to make. I can speak solely to the people that don't have those commitments. And jokes aside, just do it. I think the way that the market is moving over here, from the very limited portion that I've seen, it's booming. I would just say the sooner that you get over here, the better. You know, I joke, I think I missed the ground level. There are people out here before me, but I'd say I'm getting into this at sort of level 1, level 2. I would say, honestly, just go for it. If you feel comfortable, of course, and that's only a personal thing that you can feel ready for. If you don't feel ready to take on, if you wouldn't take the responsibility on in the UK, don't feel like you could do it in America just for the sake of relocating to America. Wait, gain that opportunity, gain that experience, learn from those people above you that can give you that grounding and make you feel comfortable. And, you know, it isn't going to be you're going to wake up one day and feel ready. You're just going to take that jump. But
yeah.
I would. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Jack. And so tell us a little bit more about the project you're working on, the role, you know, how does it compare, if at all, to what you were doing in the UK?
So I obviously, as I said, worked in the rail infrastructure. I'm now working on data centers, so more sort of the construction side of things. It is also worth mentioning that in the UK, I was working for the main contractor. The role that I'm working in America is currently for the client. There are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of the processes that I imagine people listening to this will be doing in the UK, such as your change log, such as your forecasting, such as your pay applications. All of that is exactly the same over here. The differences come in things such as the contracts that we use. So I primarily was NEC when I worked in England. I know some people will be JCT listening to this. They're almost non-existent over here. I'm sure some people do use them, but the speed at which these buildings have to go up to start turning a profit, they use a different type of contract, which is a GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price, which I guess is most relatable to an NEC contract. Sorry, that was a mouthful to say. So it's most relatable to target cost. But that being said, the processes will remain exactly the same. It's just minor tweaks. In terms of my role over here since I've come over, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm on a campus that is building 3 data centers. So we've got 3 different buildings that are being built. When I came over, one of them was essentially built and kitted out from the outside. We were just doing the fit out. Then the second building was just about complete, and then the third building was pretty much rubble. So it's been interesting actually for me, because I've seen the 3 different stages of it. I've seen the one that's almost coming to an end, the one that's middle way there, and the one that's just about to complete. In terms of my day-to-day roles, I support the senior commercial manager with the change reviews. I'll review the payouts with the contractor. I get involved a little bit in forecasting. We also have to do budgeting, with it being slightly different from working for the main contractor. We need to know how many people can we bring onto the job, and just generally keeping a track of the costs.
Yeah, brilliant. And what would you say has been that biggest professional learning curve for you?
The biggest professional learning curve for me, I think it's something that very easily could be done, but for me, I have always, as I said, worked for main contractor, so it was not difficult, it was different for me, sat working for the client and talking backwards to the main contractor, let's say, and navigating that relationship, let's say, you know, because as the general contractor, you are trying to get as much money into the project as possible, and working for the client, you're trying to keep that money in your pocket, but at the same time, trying to maintain that relationship and ensure that you get a product that you're happy with, essentially. And I mean, some of the contract sums, you know, you're on towards $1 billion projects here. Wow. So it's large portions of money.
That brings me quite nicely onto my next question. It's the difference in scale to the UK. It sounds like it's huge, but you tell me.
Yeah, so I mean, without going into too much specific detail, the contracts I was working on in the UK, there was 2. There was one that I was assisting on that was, I believe, circa 140 million pounds, and then the one that I was the sole commercial lead on was sort of 6 million, which at the time felt like the biggest project in the world. You know, I get a 50,000 pounds change order, and I'm scrutinising that. Over here, as I say, each building, so that isn't a campus. each building is circa, we'll say, $1 billion. So your $50,000 change order doesn't look too much out of place, to be fair. But yeah, the money that gets thrown into these projects are enormous. But that's shown, I believe, in the speed at which the contractors get them up. There is such a real focus out here to get them built, because the sooner they start turning a profit to the client, the better.
Do you feel like that has an impact in your, like, the pressure on you at work, or do you feel like it's not too different from at home?
I believe it's more about collaboration. Was a word that was thrown around a lot when I worked back home, and we were collaborative to an extent. There would be some negotiations, but it was still me versus you situation. You know, I want this, you want this, let's settle on this. I do believe over here, relationship with the general contractor is vital. There will be works they have to proceed with that you potentially may not have time to assess prior to them going out and doing that, and they have to trust you and you have to trust them. So I would say relationship and trust absolutely are paramount over here.
So important. And do you feel like it's really helped to kind of accelerate? I mean, I feel like you've already touched upon this already, but do you feel like it's helped to accelerate your kind of development, your, you know, progression? Has that had an impact?
Absolutely. I will caveat that with saying I've still got a long way to go. There's so much more. You know, I look at my senior commercial manager and some of the, you know, the challenges and things that he comes up with, and I don't even know where he comes up with them. So, you know, again, going back to what I was saying about the UK, I'm taking that time to learn and understand and ask him. But absolutely, I think you get a sense of achievement when you're managing such a large pot of money. Now, I know some people will tell you it doesn't matter about the value. It can be a $100,000 garage. It can be $1 billion data center. But it personally, for me, it does feel better managing large sums of money and saying, yeah, I helped on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that must be an amazing feeling as well. And, you know, I guess to work in such a growth sector, that must be pretty cool too. But I know you've touched on that already. So let's talk a little bit about life in Columbus. So outside of work, what is life in Columbus actually been like? I know you've said people have been friendly. First impression, sort of cultural differences. Tell me a little more about all of that.
It was really funny, actually. So my first night, I'd been traveling for, say, 22 hours when you factor in the time difference and things. And I was exhausted. And I got to this Airbnb, and it, you know, everywhere looks different in the darkness. And I just thought, oh, what have I done? Like, why am I here? I remember I ordered an Uber Eats, and it never came. And then I was like, right, I'm going to go to bed. And the very first night, fire alarm goes off. Everybody's out in the street. And I was like, right, that's it. Tomorrow morning, I'm coming home. But after that, it's just been plain sailing. The city itself in Columbus is honestly, and again, I haven't lived anywhere else, but I believe it is a good starting point for anybody that wants to move over here. And the reason why I say that is I'm sure there are lots of people that dream of the idea of moving to New York, but for me, New York is a melting pot in the sense of, you know, it's baptism by fire. It's the hustle and bustle. This has been such a great place to ease my way into the culture differences, meeting new friends. I think it's absolutely fantastic. There's such a large downtown area filled with bars, restaurants, shops. But if I drive for 30 minutes, I'm in a place called Hocking Hills with waterfalls and hikes and horse rides and trail rides. 6 hours drive from Chicago if I fancy a weekend away. Tennessee, Nashville, 6 hours the other way, or even 5.5. If I did want to go to New York, it's an hour on a plane. I can't speak highly enough of this city. If it was up to me, I'd build every data center here and stay here. But, you know, there are other amazing places in America as well.
Of course, but that's really nice to hear about that sort of travel opportunity that it's given you. You're not the first candidate to actually tell me about that as well, that, you know, you've been able to see more of the States. Anywhere else you've been to so far?
Yeah, they always make a joke and say that I'm never at work. I try and use my PTO as best that I can. So I think, since I've been here, I've done Tennessee, I've done New York, I've done Illinois, I've done Indiana. I've also done Where else have I done now? Honestly, I've been all over. I've actually got a road trip coming up in, well, I've got two coming up. I've got one in 2 weeks. I'm flying into Vegas and then doing
Oh,
sort of
wow.
a Arizona, Utah route. And then for the July 4th weekend, actually, I'm heading to Wyoming and Montana and Idaho. Um, yeah, my
Fantastic.
plan is to just tick as many states off as possible. But I would, or as advisor to people that are looking to move over here, you know, as important as work is, we work to live, we don't live to
Yeah.
work. So I would also advise, if you want to explore the East Coast, look at somewhere like Columbus, look at somewhere like Wisconsin, or
Yeah.
somewhere like that. If you're wanting to explore that West Coast side of things, look at your San Franciscos, look at your Nevadas.
Mm.
Whilst you can operate and get across the country, it is quite costly and it is quite time consuming. I
Yeah.
mean, my plan was to explore all of the East Coast. I mean, I've now flipped that and I'm just solely doing West Coast, but I'll live with that. That's my problem.
That's,
But yeah,
yeah. That's fantastic. And yeah, like I said, it's so amazing that you are that close, and good, good for you for making the most of that opportunity, because that's why you're there, right? And it's great.
of course.
Amazing. And so what would you say, I mean, you've kind of already touched upon this, but what would you say to somebody who's not sure about moving somewhere that they may not have heard of before?
I would say, with the amount of vacancies that across the industry at the minute,
Mm,
it goes back to what I said earlier.
yeah.
If let's say there's a location comes up in America, you want to live in America, but it's not the location that you want. Let's
Yeah.
just, yeah, take the job, get the industry experience, get the
Mm,
knowledge in the data centers, make the connections.
yeah.
Once you've seen it out for 6, 12 months, however long you want to see it, there will be another opportunity to move within, I believe, 3-4 weeks from me starting this job. We have like a weekly roundup call with my employer. There was
Mm,
4 more vacancies for different locations on that job that they
wow.
put out internally to us guys first. Says everybody, is everybody happy? Do you guys want to go here? I would say just do it, but I appreciate it's easier to say that having made the jump and seeing that everything goes okay. I've seen the other side of that cliff that you jumped to, if that makes sense.
Of course, of course. But I think that insight is so valuable to people, as well. And I think when you may not know as much about states, of course it could feel daunting to live somewhere you don't know, but that's really, really useful insight. So I think and I agree with you, I think getting people out there is, that's the biggest challenge, right? That initial, getting out there, and then when you're there, use that resource that you've got while you're out there and moving internally. It's nice to know that that is something that's actually not too difficult. Um,
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And so what, I mean, I know we've kind of already touched on all of this as but in terms of how this move has kind of impacted your career, and I guess, what would you say to somebody considering, doing something similar? What anything I suppose that you wish maybe that you'd known beforehand?
That's a tricky question, that.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Anything I wish I'd known beforehand. Um, yes, there are things that I wish I'd known beforehand.
Hmm.
I would say them, and it kind of doesn't negate everything I've said previously about moving
Yeah.
over. Let's face it, you are relocating. There are challenges.
Yeah.
Some of the basic things for getting set up were a little bit more challenging than perhaps I possibly anticipated. Now, again, I
Okay.
can't reiterate this enough. I was very fortunate. Things such as, and it may sound silly, setting up a bank account,
Mm.
getting a social security number, getting the driver's license.
Yeah.
They are all completely achievable and completely doable, but it isn't just go to an office and get it straight away. For example, in the state of Ohio, my driver's license was valid for 30 days. I didn't know this until moving out here. I then had to take forget how many hours it was now, forgive me. I had to take driving lessons. It was minimal, but I had to take driving lessons.
Right.
I then had to do 50 hours with a named driver. I then had to do an online course. Just things like that, wasn't aware of. Would not have affected my decision to move out here, but
No.
I guess I would research the state that you're moving into, because it isn't a one rule governs all. Some people don't have that rule.
Yeah.
things such as social security. I thought I was being proactive. I made an appointment at an office to get a social security appointment. The closest one available was about an hour outside of Columbus. I was like, that's absolutely fine. I drove to the office. They were unable to give me one. I then had to go to another office. The other office said, we can't help you because you've got an appointment at another one. Now, these aren't specific, these are specific problems to me, but I guess the overarching thing is research the state that you're moving to and just anticipate hiccups. You're going to get through it all, but just anticipate that in those first 2 weeks, there are going to be hiccups.
It's not always plain sailing, right? And I think what you said about research as well is so important, and that's something I recommend to everyone I'm working with. Do your own research on things. We're getting asked all the time, how much might I expect to be living on for X, Y, or Z, and we're saying you need to look into that yourselves.
I remember. You told me about Columbus. I Googled. You said, how do you feel about Columbus? I said, I've never heard of it. I Googled the skyline 15 minutes before the interview and said, yeah, that would do. But look, it's worked out.
It has. See, it was worked out. But that's maybe a little bit more research than that. But also, that being said, I think that again brings me on really nicely. Who would you say relocation suits best if there is a specific personality type? I don't know. You tell me.
I think you've got to be. I think you've got to be confident, and I'll use this I'll use this for two things.
Yeah.
Confident in your abilities. You might not know everything at that point. I still don't. I didn't, but I have the confidence to know that I can get myself there if I dedicate myself enough to learning it. I know I can get there. It was the same in the UK. I knew that I had the ability to learn it. I knew that there was going to be things coming into this job that I wasn't. There were going to be learning curves for me. Flip that to the social side of things. You've also got to be confident in outgoing to make friends, and I don't mean just walk up to people on the street and ask to be friends, but things such as joining sports clubs, going out for those drinks. I think to fully maximize your experience, those are the two things that you need to be able to do. There is the caveat, they do pay extremely well for our position in America. Maybe that's not what you wanted to do. Maybe you wanted to come over here just to bank money and eventually go back home, and that's fine. But I would say confidence is the key.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you've got to be the type of person who's happy and comfortable to put yourself out there a little bit, because you're leaving your comfort zone, right? And so you need to be comfortable with that prospect. Biggest highlight so far for you?
Professional or
anything?
Anything. Professional highlight. I would say I had to do a huge reconciliation with my senior cost manager of some of the costs on the project. And I'm not going to go into details, but we managed to find a very, very, very large cost saving. That was a good day. That was a very good day. Nice. I would say personal highlights. I've always wanted to see the New York Knicks. Always wanted to. So when I found out they were playing in Cleveland 2 hours up the road, I did manage to go and get tickets, and I went there. I think I've done 4 NBA games, a couple of college games. Yeah. Wow. So I would say personally there, and my truck, of course. Getting my truck.
Amazing. Those are definitely highlights, and as I said, it sounds like you're having the best time, Jack, so thank you so much for talking us through. That actually brings us to the end of the podcast. So as I said, thank you so much again, Jack. It really has been such a pleasure to hear about your relocation experience. I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing these insights, and I think it's going to be really, really useful for other people to hear as well. If anyone listening has any more questions about relocations, or if this has spurred you on to make the move yourself, please feel free to reach out. But for now, see you next time.